Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul. Hi everyone, it's Catherine from Willow Healing here. I am very delighted to bring the wonderful Chiron Yang to you from HeartQuest. So Chiron's a highly sensitive person who became an international spiritual mentor, and he specializes in heart-centered leadership after experiencing spontaneous healing from a lifelong autoimmune skin condition. So Chiron's developed HeartQuest, which is his signature program designed to facilitate a profound inner transformation to help foster clarity, empowerment, and more energy for highly sensitive individuals to live their heart's greatest desires. I love that. And Chiron offers evolutionary astrology as well and lifeline technique sessions to help you focus on processing subconscious limitations that are emotionally charged to step into your greatest gifts. And when he's not serving clients, Chiron can be found enjoying his passion, which is movement enthusiast. So welcome and thank you so much for being here, Chiron. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for having me here, and excited to share what's about to come up in this session.
Yeah, it's always a journey. Let's just go for it. So,
Yeah,
so if you wanted to start, you have an amazing healing journey, which I'm sure everyone would love to hear about.
yeah, I would love to share that. I'll say that I started getting sick around the age of 5, where I have some rashes on my skin, and as a sign, my parents took me to see medical doctors, Western medication, and basically I was heavily medicated at such a young age. And by the age of 8, a doctor told me that it was going to be a lifelong condition, and he diagnosed me as atopic dermatitis, if I'm not mistaken, and or also known as eczema, right?
Yep.
And prescribed me really heavy antihistamines, steroids, drugs that a kid shouldn't be having, but he's having it. And at that time, the doctor's goal is to resolve my itch, resolve my pain, which kind of makes sense, right? We go to see the doctor, I'm sick, can you help me get rid of this? And the doctor says, yes, I can. So little did we know, because we are unaware about, the medication, the side effects of it, and then it created something, I'll say, a complications to my system. And I was growing up. What happened was that, the drug really quickly removed the problems and killed the symptoms, in a way, cured the symptoms, right? But eventually the symptoms came back even stronger, even louder, to a point where it was just, it began with little spots around my body to my entire body, and to a point that I started being very allergic to all kinds of food. And no matter what food allergy test I took, right, it keeps changing, right? And beyond that, I started becoming really sensitive to my environment, where dust, dirt, going out to play in the grass, I'll get, the rush gets intensified. And when that happened, my entire life just kind of changed as a kid. From someone who's vibrant, energetic, loud, I became a very shy, introspective, and introverted kid, thinking that that's just my personality. So I was kept under a little box, and eventually life was just, I guess, my childhood and into my teens was just moments after moments of repressing myself, controlling myself, not to scratch, not to eat these, to hang out with my friends, because I can't have what they have. Can't go out to the sun and play. There was a lot of restriction
Yeah.
that created a lot of this deep psychological scars that I have, which kind of like perpetuate the skin symptoms even more. So today I realized that there's a huge connection between the mind and the body, the emotions and the spirit. They're all intertwined, as well as the health of our relationships with one another. So that's how it started. The problem.
and just that being that little kid and not being allowed to be out in nature and just be curious and to be get that outlet would just have been so stifling.
Yeah, I mean, what is nature? At the time, as a kid, I'm a city boy. I grew up in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia,
Yeah.
where it's just a concrete jungle at this point. And I did notice like the cutting down of forests to build more real estate houses and things like that. And being in a third world country, we were like trying to race, to develop the country, to modernize ourselves. Hence, I grew up not understanding nature at all, not till I was, I'll say, 25. Then I was like,
Yeah.
oh my god, nature is my real home.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something to be said about finding that perfect spot in nature when you just feel completely at one and in tune with everything around you, right?
Totally, and more than that, I think nature is exactly the healing element to heal most things, right? I think, what's the problem isn't the symptoms, which we tend to think it is, right? We tend to think that we need to get rid of the symptoms, but little do we know the symptoms is actually the messenger of
Yeah.
the body telling you where we have gone out of alignment, whether it's our diet, our lifestyle, our thinking, our emotions, or our relationships. And as I started seeing, understanding this, in my healing journey, I started seeing the interconnectedness in all aspects of our humanity and our human experience. And it's just not so easy to find the so-called root cause because there's many, and it's almost impossible to control all the roots at one time.
Yeah. And it's layered. It's very much like an onion, right? So you peel back one layer and then the next thing kind of comes up and then you peel back the next layer. And especially with the level that your body was having that autoimmune response, it would have just been so layered in terms of, what's going on emotionally as well under all that because then you're having this emotional reaction to what's happening. So you have to unpack that too.
Yep. And unpacking is basically like the a detective's work,
Yes.
and because no one had a clue with what's going on, I eventually took the matter to my own hands, where at the age of 16 and a half, I guess, I basically said, okay, enough is enough. There's something's not quite right with this medicine. I've been taking it for 10 years. I'm going to stop it. And that created some level of shock around my family members, my friends, because it was like, no, if you don't take this, what's going to happen to you? And, right, doctors said you can't stop. It's a lifelong thing. Why don't you just keep it to it? But I was like, you know what? There must be a way besides medication. So, but I did it in a way that is kind of like rebellious. I had enough of what's going on and people telling me what to do. And so I did it anyway. I just trusted my gut instinct. And without my understanding or my realization is that I went into a huge withdrawal state
Yeah.
where I've gone cold turkey and basically was bedridden for a year and a half, and I had to stop school. I had to, use natural remedies like eating clean stuff, almost no salt, no oil in my diet because we have lack understanding of nutrition,
Yeah.
right? So we just basically try to remove everything as possible and make it as clear as possible. By the time I was supported with traditional Chinese medicine,
Yeah.
where I got acupuncture, I got some herbal remedies to shower with, I mean, take a bath with. But if I were to show you those pictures, the withdrawal effect looks like basically a burnt patient.
Yeah.
It looks like I just got out of fire, and I had to be bedridden because of that. So it was really severe, but it awakened my soul in some sense.
Well, yeah, it was you following your intuition and your gut, right? And you getting to that point where you went, I know this is horrible, but I can see the light and I feel this is the path I need to be on despite having to do all this. And it is that amount of medication, it just builds up in your liver, right? And people don't realize how much it like our liver is such a fundamental part of all our organs and systems in our body. And then when you have that build up of drugs in it, and medication, it takes such a long time to detox it and filter it back out, which then it's still trying to like do its job and filter the other things, then filter that on top. So it's would be really respect your journey. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And totally, you're right. And you're spot on about that. So it took time, for me to heal. And what gave me the context and the faith to continue is actually, yeah, I guess you could say a divine support and guidance. Where I went to the bookstore, I asked for answers, and I found some books. And one of the book name I remember I picked up is Spontaneous Healing by Dr. Andrew Weil. And one of the things that written in the back cover of the book is that it says the body has a natural capacity to heal itself. You know what? That's all I needed to hear.
Well,
That's all I needed to hear to move on
what
and move
what
forward.
a perfect message in a book. But yes, you can heal yourself, and also it can be spontaneous. So
Yeah, and that led me to the asking the right question instead of going back to the old answers,
yeah,
right? Right.
yeah,
I rather live in a question than going back to a solution that I know that did not work, even though it gave me a sense of the known or the comfort. So I decided to went to the unknown and basically asking myself, what are the conditions that is leading for natural healing, and not just natural but spontaneous healing that can happen, that I hear in the anecdotes in the book is saying, like, many stories of people healing, you know, from cancer and autoimmune conditions, and just healed
yeah. And
magically, miraculously.
I think we forget, and well, not just we forgot, but also we've been programmed to believe that we can't heal ourselves and that we don't have that power. And we have to rely on other people. And I know often because of what I do with intuitive healing work that I'll say to someone, they keep losing their voice. I'm like, you aren't saying something. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, you need to let it out. Otherwise, your body's telling you you're not saying something, so your voice is gone. And those little kind of hints. And our body is very much a messenger, like that book was for you. Our body tries to give us messages as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's our beliefs that is making us sick,
Yeah.
right? And because it's giving a false impression or misperception of what's going on around us. Hence, we maladapt not just in our behavior, but so much that it affects our biology and our cellular behavior. Oh, it's not producing the enzyme anymore, or this T cell or whatever histamine that's in the body is overreacting, right? So the problem with modern medicine, especially allopathic medicine, is that it compartmentalized.
Yeah. Compartmentalizes. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, everything into different things, and then you got to take different drugs, different supplements for different things, right? And that's where I started. I thought, okay, maybe if I could change my diet, I could change my lifestyle a little bit. Maybe there's some improvement, and yes, there is some improvement when I stopped eating processed food and started eating more wholesome food, organic food as possible. And that is itself a condition to help the body heal because it requires the nutrients that it needs.
Yep.
Then I went into the process where people were introducing many supplements to me about, this is what you need, this is what you need. And then I tried it, taking one step at a time, taking myself as a little lab rat. Out what my body is lacking and how do I, really compensate that. Then the physical journey turned into, because I feel like I've tried all different diets and then the results are kind of same: vegan, raw vegan, the meat diet. You know, every diet promises me some results, but it did not last.
Yeah.
Right. So when I kept, as in maximize all the different diets that I've done, and I gave it a lot of time, 6 months to a year or even more. And then there's just intuition call, you know what, move on to the next, figure out the next limiting factor that is stopping me from receiving my health. And this is when I started exploring astrology. Okay, why am I suffering this way? Why is my path different from everybody else? What is this soul karmic journey that needs to go through in order to find his purpose and really reveal his destiny? So that intrigued me. I started to see the psycho-spiritual aspects to diseases, and they are a sign from nature again, all the time, a messenger showing us this is how you go, and this is where you need to go. And it's like a weird calling that I follow one piece of little puzzle one at a time. But being in my early, late teens, early adulthood, it was like confusing as hell.
Yeah.
So much that I've dropped out of school, I dropped out of university twice, and but the funny thing is that despite how lost I was, you know, I was never that lost.
Yeah, it still felt like there was a thread you could hold on to, right? And it's like my foot's on the path, but half my body's hanging off, but I know I'm kind of going in the right spot. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the feeling of the dark night of the soul, right?
Yep.
You guys are familiar with that term where nothing just seems to work
Yep.
until you just listen to the next calling that you
Yeah.
have. That's the only thread that I have. So that
Well,
was the
yeah.
only way I moved through, right? And it was really a lot of faith. Even though I grew up atheist, we culturally we practice Taoism and Buddhism, but I never really had any concept of God. But I knew that there is always a higher energy guiding all of us that I don't know, and it seems like sometimes I can hear it. So I decided to follow it.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful because that's what, when I work with my clients, it's the same thing that I try and impart. Like, there's a calling that we have, and we have this, pull, and it's just about following that pull and honoring that heart space, which I know is a big thing for you, but honoring that heart pull, because that is, I feel that's where our soul tends to pull from, is that heart centered space. And when you were talking about dark night of the soul, I call it layers. So it's like you keep going through it until you've fully got the healing message through it. So it's like, often I meet people and they're like, but I've already done this. And I'm like, you have, but clearly there's still more things that need to be cleared out. So for me personally, I had the same thing happen 3 times in a space of 6 months, like 2 months apart, I think. And I remember the first time I was on the floor rocking, just couldn't believe this was going on. The second time I was upset and angry, and I remember yelling at my guides and that, going, why am I doing this again? And then the third time I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I knew that was done then. Like, I knew it was done. And often people forget that sometimes we have to keep going through that little journey until we can move to that next point of our heart journey once it's fully shifted.
Yeah, that's so true. And in retrospect, just hearing your story and looking back at mine, took me 10 years
Yeah.
of that moving around, of figuring out that whole Dark Knight thing. And yeah, I remember many times during those years, I was like, yeah, I think I'm done. I think I'm good now. I'm pretty spiritual. I'm pretty healed. I think I'm pretty damn good now. Let's go back and continue my life. Let's create something more meaningful. And the next thing you know, it's just like, right?
Nuh-uh. Nuh-uh, Chiron. You have to do a bit more
And
work there.
yeah, and this continued until my Saturn return. Basically, after completing my Saturn return at the age of 30. So if you imagine, I embarked my journey at 16. I feel like I fully got out of it and finally found stability in my life. After that 16 years, 30, 31. And it was funny.
Yeah.
During that time was COVID. It was the lockdown, and the whole world was basically going through a massive, massive, huge awakening at that time.
Yeah, and also the idea of like the lockdown, I feel it was almost symbolic of making people go back within, right? Because we all had
Exactly.
to take ourselves out of all these outside influences to go back in and look in. And that's when I started with my spiritual journey. So, because I was like, there's something more to this, there's something more going on, there's a bigger perspective here. Um, so, how did you feel that healing journey led to this beautiful program that you have called HeartQuest? So, how did that lead to from your healing journey?
So throughout my healing journey, I've been picking up a lot of different modalities like astrology, studying Carl Jung, study philosophy like Krishnamurti and the Diamond Heart that is basically connected to Sufism. I studied um, a lot of comparative religion because I wanted to know the answer of like why am I like this, right? I wanted to know the existential meaning of diseases and why humanity had to suffer in such a way to wake up to their divine essence. And that led me to schooling in Europa University, which is somewhere in Colorado, and all these different disciplines. I just, for some reason, just took it all up. I was hungry for knowledge and I was hungry for truth. And basically, they were just like little missing puzzles that I needed. And I didn't know what they were at that time, but looking back, this is how this program is founded, and created. It's inspired by the idea that life is a rite of passage, and if you don't have an intentional ceremony or space or container to go into one, then life will just do it for you. And
I can
about neither
so
the song.
agree with that.
Life will just do it for you, right? And you would rather do it intentionally by yourself to mature the consciousness of who you are rather than waiting for life to do it for you. Because here's the thing, I think we in education, what we have right now, we are so focused on the physical development of our human experience, right? Money, monetary, get an education, survive the physicality of this kind of stuff, and survive in the so-called real world. But we lack spiritual development, right? There's no almost no formal education of spiritual development, and this is where we are lost because now it's like trial and error.
Or even
It's like
acknowledging emotions. Like that is such a thing that we forget to teach, especially with a lot of people don't realize how empathic we are, especially children. And
exactly.
they'll take on our anger or they'll take on our sadness, and then a lot of clients I work with, the parents like, well, what's going on with them? I said, you just have to tell them what's going on. Just share with them and say, I'm feeling really angry today, but it's not something you need to worry about. I just need to work through that, or letting them know it's okay to be those emotions too.
Exactly, and it's a problem where we don't accept that part of ourselves as an intrinsic part of our human experience, right? Thinking that there's a wrong feeling, there's a taboo around having emotion, or what's wrong with you for being so emotional,
You're a crybaby. Why are you
yeah,
crying?
or
Stop.
whatnot. And I don't think males are the one who's gonna just get it because of course there's a stereotype gender thing going on where males are, you know, strong men are not supposed to cry and etc. etc. But I think that equally women and the feminine as well has been repressing this part of themselves because they're afraid that they're troubling the male and then they need to please the partner for not being so emotional and so chaotic or whatever or whatnot, right? So this is where I feel like the woundedness around how our emotions or being in our heart is often seen as a weakness or it's broken or something's wrong with it.
Yeah,
And
and
this is why we got sick.
yeah, and from owning a business, I had to really step into my masculine, like being a business owner. And I didn't realize until I made the conscious decision to sell it and step away, how much I disliked being that much in the masculine all the time, because it wasn't, to me, I was not honoring my divine feminine, even though like people would meet me and wouldn't think that at all, but I had to put these compartmentalization on, and then I was ignoring what I really wanted to do, which was not run a business at all. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And this is where HeartQuest comes in, right? It's actually, if you want to talk about masculine and feminine principle, I'll say HeartQuest is a feminine leadership. It offers the container of the masculine, yes, the whole space, having the integrity and the structure of that. But in the end of the day, you got to find your own answer.
Yeah.
So the masculine's role is to create safety and trust so that the feminine could come out and dance where the intuition, the creativity can come through, right? So this is where I come in, even though I don't call it a feminine thing or a masculine thing, because the heart is really the center that bridges both of it, right? So we dance around it. So long story short, to answer your question, I collected all these modalities that I've tried on myself and started asking, okay, how can I put this together and serve the people who are in need of my help? And HeartQuest came about actually just this year, right? The previous year was just different articulations of it.
Yeah.
It has already been there, and I've been working on this for, I'll say, it started in 2016 when I was, working on coaching my coaching program that brings me out to nature and guide people in nature and using nature as a collaboration to get people to their truth and their answers and their healing. And that was the initial seeding of this idea. But eventually, it comes into full fruition this year in 2024. And so it's a new program, but not really that new. But essentially, it is how do you activate the power of your heart, tapping into the inner technology that is within you. And what I bring What I do here is to bring you into an experience of yourself, to recognize there are already gifts, there are already wisdom, there are already needs and answers that you already know about yourself and your life for you to thrive. I help you to tap into the compass that is living inside of you rather than giving you a map or a detailed plan on how to live your life.
Yeah.
So you can figure out your own plan.
You're speaking my language. You're empowering people to be their own cheer squad, right? So,
Yeah, basically it's self leadership. It starts there. That so much that when you take those risks and with a safe container that you know how to do that, that you get out of your wounded inner child state to step into your adulthood, something starts to shift. You can take responsibility. You can don't give a shit about what people say about you, and really honor your truth. You can really draw boundaries. Let me talk about this before we started this session, where you allow the energy to flow and you awaken the energy of your heart to center yourself from a place of love rather than judging or pushing people away and isolating yourself even more. And the thing is that when you're able to awaken the power of your heart, you create an internal environment that is so conducive for your body, for your relationships around you, for your career, for money to enter your life. So healing is just a natural byproduct of that. Happiness is just a natural byproduct of that. We don't have to go chase after healing or happiness. We just have to create the conditions.
and it's amazing how serendipitous and how things just flow when you're on the right path. And yes, sometimes you get little blocks along the way, but the universe will just provide you another way around that little obstacle if that's where you're meant to be going.
Yeah, and in HeartQuest, we don't see obstacles as obstacles, right? And that every problem is a good problem to have because it's definitely an initiation
Yeah.
to step into your power. Because how else can you grow without friction, without pressure, without stress? So it's a little bit of like being an alchemist or a magician, where you take the stress in, you transform and transmute the lead into gold, and then you share it with the world.
Yeah.
And this is what this is really all about.
Which is beautiful. I love that. I once heard this person said, we come in with amnesia because if we knew how to get from A to Z without having to do the middle, we'd probably just do it anyway.
Yeah, and there's another one that I heard about this is that we already made those choices that we know we need to make in life, but we make those choices again so that we can experience it.
My favorite is when I tell people you actually chose your family and your parents and your situations, and they're like, "No, I didn't." I'm like, "No, you actually did. Your soul knew more than what you think you do."
Yeah, the ego definitely did not choose it, but the soul definitely did.
Yeah. Um, and then how did you evolve the 4 pillars as part of that HeartQuest program?
The 4 pillars. Let's talk about the 4 pillars, right? The first pillar is about self inquiry, which is to me inspired by Socrates, right? He said something called know thyself. Here's the thing: if you don't know who you are, what you want, and what your values are, then how can you even begin anywhere? So
Yeah.
you got to know yourself, right? So that's the first pillar: know yourself. The second pillar is love yourself, right? Where it has a lot to do with allowing and understanding the language of the subconscious mind that comes through our emotions that we can't control and the symptoms of our body that we can't control, and really understand the hidden message behind them, because everything goes back to love. So we need to see it from a perspective of love, that our subconscious mind is here to protect us first and foremost, and then until it is ready to be met by another force, meaning love, we the subconscious mind then reveals a message on how can you grow beyond your limited current constraints, right? So the second pillar is loving everything and anything unconditionally and tapping into the force of love and gratitude and bliss to transmute those things that has been holding us back. Because if you know what you want, but for some reason you can't get there, no matter how much you try, then there must be something inside of you resisting it. So that's the second pillar, loving yourself. The third pillar is to be yourself, where I teach people to, which I feel is essential because you can process all your shit all day long.
Yep.
Sorry for swearing. But go out there. you don't go out there and talk to people and take those risks, then nothing happens. I believe transformation goes beyond therapeutic sessions that we go to. I think the real transformation happens when you're taking those risks. When you're feeling somewhat vulnerable, uncomfortable, but you just do it anyway, and you just listen to the intuition and you just spoke your truth or you act upon your truth, something starts to happen. Now you're choosing yourself. And now, when you choose yourself, the universe will respond to that, right? Accordingly. So, expectations are not managed by complaining to someone else. Expectation are realigned in having those difficult conversations,
Yeah.
right? Or strategies or planning or setting goals are a problem because if we don't take action,
Yeah.
then it's just going to be a good idea. Great insights that we learn from Instagram, from workshops, from YouTube, from our books are great, but it's just halfway there if we are not taking these insights and we're not applying it into our life and getting feedback from what's around us. Then those insights is just another beautiful experience, and this is what I saw in many spiritual communities is that we get high in that little workshop retreat, and when we go back to our lives, the same shit happens. Right?
And I think it's about being authentic too, right? There's
Exactly.
so many people I know who will, put themselves and being equal and realizing we are all equal. We're just on different stages of a journey. And I've seen people put themselves on these pedestals, say they're this guru and that, you just have to do this and you can be on this healing journey as well. But they're not realizing that, they're not necessarily doing what they tell you to do either. So
Yeah, yeah, and there's a lot of that, and I mean, I'm not here to judge,
no.
the other people who are on this path, but basically, I feel like this is the missing link. If you're really looking for transformation, this is the missing link. Pillar 1 and 2 sets you up for pillar 3,
Yeah.
and then pillar 3, you get feedback. You go back to pillar 1 and 2 and do the work.
Round and round and round we go.
Yeah, so these pillars are not a linear pillars. That's why
Yeah.
they're called pillars rather than stepping stones because they are interconnected, and without one of them, it's just like a chair missing a leg, right? So, which brings me into pillar 4,
Yeah.
which is heal yourself. When I say heal yourself, I'm saying putting yourself in an environment where you can cultivate enough energy to move through pillar 1, 2, and 3, right? You can have the best healers in the world, but if you're not putting yourself in the right environment, eating the right food,
Yeah.
being with the right people, those essential acts of self love, if you don't even go ahead and apply it in your life, that pillar 1, 2, and 3 is just like futile, right? It doesn't make sense. So the fourth pillar is really about tapping into something called flow states. When I say flow states, can your body and the energy in your body flow as well as your mental body, as your emotional body, as your spiritual body? And we're talking about energy here, and flow states is basically allowing the healing to happen by putting ourselves in the right condition. So one of the few things that I tell people to do is to set up their morning routine and protect the first hour of your morning before they go ahead and start their day. Because if you can't protect the first hour of your day, then you can't protect your life. Then you can't protect anything.
I have to say, the mornings where my son will wake up early and I don't have that time just to get in my space and get in my zone, I'm in a grumpy mood until I snap back out of it because it's that and it's almost trying to explain it to people. I just need that moment for myself and they're not fully resonating with it, that they don't get it. Like you just need that time to be with yourself to get ready.
Yeah, and to be in connection of what love is, what gratitude is, what grace is. And for yourself, if you have son waking up earlier than you, then you got to wake up earlier than him to
I
get to bed
know.
earlier, right? And so that's the thing. And can you wake up 1 hour earlier than your normal time to set up that day for you well? And trust me, because there will be a pause in the moment. Oh my god, I'm struggling with this. I don't want to wake up. I don't want to do this. But the cost not to is even higher. Would you rather struggle in the first hour of your day in a good way, or struggle your entire day in a bad way?
That's it. Be in that bad mood. Or
Right?
just pull
Yeah.
yourself out of the funk. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a mental spiritual hygiene, right? If you know how to brush your teeth in the morning and make breakfast for yourself, Then you have time for meditation, for intention setting, for visualization, for connecting to the sun and nature around you, for drinking that water and cleanse and being gratitude by connecting to the elements of life, and shift yourself out of that survival mode, right? And this is why I get people, when you go to bed, turn your phone into airplane mode so that's not the first thing that you pick up in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you do, it's like a train that you catch and you're never turning back.
Yeah, I tell people one step more. I say buy an old school alarm clock if you need to wake up at a certain time, and just then you can detach from that phone even more, and then you don't have EMFs next to your head, so you can sleep better. Or bad EMFs, I should say, but yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love airplane mode, for that reason. You could use it anytime during the day,
Yeah.
right? Okay, now it's focus time. I'm working, right? Because the more distracted you are, the more leakage of energy happens.
Yeah.
So the top pillar, healing yourself, is really about, can you focus on love throughout the day? Can you meditate throughout the day and maintain the sense of peace throughout the day, regardless of what's happening on the external environment?
Yeah, and
And
staying
that's
true to you, right? Staying true to that. Well, does this, resonate with me? And if it doesn't, I'm just gonna let it go.
Yeah, which goes back to pillar one, two, and three.
Yeah.
You see the interconnectedness between.
I have this image of the pillars, but instead like a circle around the top. Those old school designs with the circle on top, like to build. Yeah, and then it's just collapsing if you don't actually. And it's that loop that you were saying, and almost like interchanged in the middle too. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you can start anywhere in the pillar, and then and move on to another, and you still get results right away. So that's the beauty of the pillars.
And I feel like the extra things that you offer as well, Chiron, with the astrology, like knowing thyself. A lot of people I will say, have you looked at your numerology or have you looked at your astrology? Because often people don't realize how much the stars impact how we like present ourselves to the world. And sometimes it's nice just to have that knowledge and go, oh, that's why I do that, and catch yourself in that so you can change that if you want to.
Yeah, I feel like studying the stars have given me a more capacity to be compassionate of what's going on all around me, because it's so easy when you're living the world in your days. You have your own problems, you have your own life, and whatever is going on. It's easy to just tunnel vision to your own self and think that you're the only one having that problem. But no, the stars say everybody's having a problem. So, my friend, you have a choice to either react to this thing and judge and whatnot, or you can find that love within you to make a shift, to not just elevate yourself, but also be in a place of service and in a place of giving without that bitterness and that resentment, and make this world a better place. Your choice, right? That's
Well,
what the stars really is saying.
yeah. Well, and it's true. And it's funny because I talk about this stuff openly. I don't like that was one of the biggest things. I had to stop censoring myself and let my voice out because that was one of my biggest lessons coming to this life. And I would just tell my clients, oh, yeah, everything's a bit weird because we're in Mercury retrograde. So that's why the printer is currently not my best friend. And so now they'll just come in and go, is there something going on with the moon at the moment? Because the kids are crazy. And I'm like, well, and they're just open to it all of a sudden because it's okay to talk about it.
Yeah, yeah, sure. But it's important to note that the stars didn't do this to us.
Yes.
It's just creating the environment and understanding what's around the environment. And the stars basically show us a way to work around it so that we find the path of least effort, or the path of least resistance. I think that's more precise than the first one.
Yeah.
Path of least resistance, which goes back to the whole idea of flow and being with rhythm, with the universe, in nature, rather than thinking that you are the only one having the rhythms. And then the whole world should follow yours.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I was listening to this audiobook at the moment, The Essenes, and that what they did for the children in the Essene culture was when the child was born, they actually did a whole star chart for them, and then they actually could determine their gifts that they were coming into the world for to help them nurture that. And I went, oh my goodness, how much easier would like life have been knowing these things when you came in, right?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because I'm reading the same book,
Oh, there you go.
the Essene's Gospel of Peace, right?
I think,
And
yeah.
a really amazing historical context about people living an enlightenment society and how that might look like. And definitely, the stars and astrology is definitely an ancient wisdom that we don't know where the source of it come from, but the invention of it is just profound.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, and that's why I love that you entwine all of that in what you do as well, and I love that it's so much from healing yourself, because I fully resonate with that. Doing medical intuitive work, I try and teach people how to heal themselves as well, so I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. We are little magicians teaching people how to heal themselves.
Well, and I tell people like everyone has these hidden gifts. It's just once you start to heal yourself and unpack it all and love yourself and know yourself and be yourself, then you can see these gifts that start to come through.
I think yeah, that's the point of
Yeah,
our human experience, right? To transform our karma into our dharma, which is transmuting pain into our purpose. We are just here to experience life and remember who we are, and then so that we can come home to the truth of who we are, and then awaken the others, and we can live a happy life that way.
that's it. And that's the beautiful thing, that we can all be a light in someone's world.
Yeah.
All right. So, Kyron, what is one thing that you would want? I ask everyone this. What is one thing that you would want for the world to have if they could have one healing message?
So, what is one healing message for the world? Is that what
Yeah.
you're asking?
Yeah.
For some reason, this is coming up for me right now. To This is not my quote, by the way. It's someone that I've listened to and heard and been contemplating on. To live a life that's great, you gotta let go of a life that's good.
Yeah.
I think we are our own worst enemy in so many sense. We are the creator of our own disease. And I remember in the lockdown, it was such a humbling message when I asked, you know, the God or the universe to say, what am I missing? I've learned everything in the world, and you told me to visit these places, and I've learned it all, but why am I not healing? I've tried my best. And I was in a place of despair and basically down on my knees asking for a divine intervention. I almost never do that because I believe in living my life and controlling my life based on my own efforts and my own will. But at that moment, I completely surrendered my arrogance, I'll just say so, and called for help. Now, here's the thing about spirit guides and all is that if you don't call for help, they won't help you.
Yep.
If you're not humble enough to receive their blessings, then you won't receive it. But I was in that moment and I was open. And ever since then, I believe in spirit guides guiding me, and I'm not alone in my journey. So they just gave me one word as a guide. And I was like, just one word. Basically, they gave me the word forgiveness. And even though mentally and my intellect wouldn't understand what that really means, because I've tried my whole life forgiving and I wasn't able to successfully forgive anybody, or anybody who has caused me that pain. So, but my body knew, and I just dropped into these deep tears and I cried and I grieved to the fact that, wow, I have been resisting you, as in the universe or the God, all this while, and you're still giving me this blessing of showing me how to heal. So, to me, forgiveness is not forgetting what people did to you and whatnot.
No.
Instead, forgiving is freeing myself from the pain that I did to myself that's caused by the hurt done by other people,
Yeah.
right? So and I realized and I understood, wow, it's really no one's fault. There's no one to blame and no one to judge. But it's my life, so I have to be responsible for this. I gotta shift this. So in that moment, I surrendered my self righteousness.
Yeah.
I surrendered what I thought was right, And it came to me because the more spiritual text and knowledge and philosophy that I learned about myself and about life, the more arrogant I got actually until that moment. And to a point where I was humbled that, wow, healing is really not through the mind but through the heart, and the heart doesn't make sense.
No.
It's just love. And I was like, okay, and I was humbled in that moment, and I dropped myself, and I surrendered everything, and that's when all the miracles starts to happen and healing starts to happen spontaneously. And what usually took me years to heal, in terms of symptoms, healed within 3 months
Yeah.
after that. And so I thought that was magical, and this is why HeartQuest started, and how I basically wake up every day in my life right now is to understand how blessed and how grateful I am to be in this place of service, because it's a privilege. So the message is, again, we gotta let go what the life that is good, the life that we thought was good, our dreams, our ambition, our whatever calling that we think that is good for us, so much that we can listen and actually hear the true calling from the universe. We gotta let go what we think we want, so that what we should have by the perspective of the universe can come to us, because we have been blocking it.
Yeah. And it's almost like you want to dream, but at the same time, when you get so fixated on this one path, you miss all the other good stuff too. And it's about trying
Yeah,
to just go with that flow, right?
yeah, exactly. And the magic and the miracles, which I thought trees and the spiritual experiences, it's not there. It's found in the mundane. It's found in the everyday boring things that you do. But do you see it? That's the question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
So yeah.
thank you so much, Kyron. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I feel very much in my heart right now. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, likewise. I appreciate the space, and I hope this sharing is able to help people in some way, shape, or form that I don't even know how.
Yeah. I feel that if anyone feels your energy as much as I do, they will definitely feel something shifting in their heart right now. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. If you want to connect with Chiron, you can check out his website, chironyang.com, or you can hook up with him on Instagram or Facebook. You'll find that in the show notes as well. And until next time, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.